Ariel Helwani weighs in on Conor McGregor potentially having sunset clause in UFC contract. Ariel Helwani recently offered his perspective on the possibility of Conor McGregor having a sunset clause embedded in his UFC contract. McGregor's highly anticipated return to the octagon has been a hot topic of conversation within the MMA community, as the Irishman has been absent from competition for more than 3 years now. The Notorious was initially set to make his comeback against Michael Chandler at UFC 303 in June, but just 2 weeks before the bout, McGregor was forced to withdraw due to an injury. Since then, the former two-division UFC champion has remained resolute in his desire to return to action, with 2 fights still remaining on his current contract with the promotion. During a recent episode of the Ariel Helwani Show, the MMA reporter was asked if he had any insights regarding the existence of a sunset clause in McGregor's contract. Helwani stated that he would be surprised if such a provision were included, considering McGregor's strong determination to fight again. Sunset clause for Conor? I don't know of one. I'd be surprised if there is one, given his stature and popularity. And so I don't know of a date as well. I think we'll get the 2 fights. The question is, do we get more than that? A sunset clause is a contractual stipulation that establishes an expiration date for a regulation, rendering it inactive unless both parties agree to extend it. If such a provision is in McGregor's contract, it could affect his fighting opportunities and the terms of his agreement for future bouts with the promotion. Khamzat Chimaev hopes to change Dana White's mind, pass Sean Strickland after UFC 308. Dana White might have other plans, but Khamzat Chimaev isn't opposed to the idea of changing his mind after Saturday. UFC CEO Dana White recently said a rematch with former champion Sean Strickland will be the next title defense for middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis, who recently defended the belt with a submission of former champ Israel Adesanya. I hope so, but they said that before as well. When I beat Gilbert Burns, I didn't have my chance. After that was Kamaru Usman, and if he beats Usman, he's going to fight for the title. I haven't fought for the title yet, so we'll see. One of the things that has been holding Chimaev back in that regard, almost certainly, has been his inactivity due to health issues. He's apparently done well enough financially to not stress about his lack of activity, and insists having more money isn't making him less hungry for a title. I'm happy with the money. I'm making more money than any champions. Money is not changing me. People will be the same. I'm staying humble as I was before. Israel Adesanya sends Alex Pereira advice as his next opponent could be decided at UFC 308. Israel Adesanya's rivalry with Alex Pereira is one of the most legendary across combat sports. The pair have gone to war on 4 separate occasions, twice in kickboxing and twice in MMA. Their rivalry was arguably at its highest point during their 2 fights in the UFC. But since Pereira's move from middleweight to light heavyweight in 2023, the pair have exchanged more respectful words about each other. Alex recently defeated Khalil Roundtree at UFC 307 to defend his light heavyweight title. It marked his 3rd championship fight of 2024, a year in which he has been incredibly active. The last stylebender recently broke down this weekend's pay-per-view card, and while discussing Ankalaev versus Rakic, he shared the following advice with his former foe. If Ankalaev beats Rakic, yeah, who else is there for Alex to fight? He should fight Alex next, but Alex should just chill. Advice, he doesn't need it, but he should just chill. He's just been going, and right now, because he's the most active fighter right now, the most active champ right now. So he should just relax and probably fight early next year. Muhammad Mokaev plots octagon return in 2025. Muhammad Mokaev still has faith that he'll make his way back to the UFC. As an undefeated fighter on the cusp of flyweight title contention, Mokaev knew something was off when he wasn't offered a new contract during his UFC deal. Muhammad thinks the UFC's decision came because of a mix of things. His behavior, which included multiple altercations with Manel, as well as his fighting style. He has since signed with Brave Combat Federation, his home prior to joining the UFC. I was feeling this because it was my last fight on the contract. I was feeling something not going right. I don't think it's because of what happened between me and Manel at the hotel, because usually they change the contract not on the last fight, maybe like 2 fights left. But I was on my last fight, and I asked for a new contract. I couldn't get it, and I felt something was going on. I've been told I need to have more finishes inside the octagon. I tried my best. I came out from all big injuries, still competing, still accepting the big names. Now in the UFC, I have 5 fighters who I beat, all in top 15, and I think I just need to sit down and speak to Dana. I spoke to Hunter Campbell straight after what happened in Manchester. He said, "We will see you back in the UFC, but maybe they want to see me mature more outside the octagon, but whatever happened, I'm ready to come back now." Merab Dvalishvili says Umar Nurmagomedov's disrespect forced him to block him. Ever since Umar Nurmagomedov's ascension into the top 5, UFC bantamweight champion Merab Dvalishvili has cited multiple reasons to deny him a title fight. After beating former title challenger Corey Sandhagen to a decision win at Abu Dhabi, the young eagle became a credible contender for the title. But the champ thinks otherwise. Earlier, Dvalishvili denied him a title fight, claiming that he had fought nobody except for the Sandman, and asked Umar to wait his turn while the Georgian wanted to run it back with Sean O'Malley. And now Dvalishvili is saying that he was forced to not give him a title shot because of his disrespectful rants. I was ready to fight him, but he was just disrespectful on Twitter, and that's why I block him. While the champion earlier stated that he wanted some off time to relax, he responded to O'Malley's call-out and agreed to fight him this year while denying Umar a title shot. Robert Whittaker makes his opinion clear about Khamzat Chimaev's wrestling, shares his fight plan for UFC 308. Robert Whittaker wants Khamzat Chimaev to show him that he's the best wrestler in the UFC. Since his clash against Gilbert Burns in April 2022, Chimaev has only fought twice in the octagon, defeating Kevin Holland and Kamaru Usman. Whittaker has faced many world-class middleweights throughout his UFC tenure. He very well might be the best wrestler in the UFC. The thing is, though, we're not wrestling. I'm going to be doing my hardest to not wrestle with him. I'm going to try and take the fight into my own strengths, and honestly, I've heard it's really good. He says it's good, everybody else agrees, so show me. I'm ready. I want it. Dana White says he wanted to cut Francis Ngannou from UFC in 2018, but was begged not to. It appears Francis Ngannou's return to MMA didn't change Dana White's mind about his departure from the UFC. While White's claims of Francis leaving the UFC to avoid fighting Jon Jones are nothing new, the UFC CEO mentioned an additional detail. White said that after Ngannou suffered consecutive losses to Stipe Miocic and Derek Lewis in 2018, he wanted to cut the future UFC heavyweight champion. His performance was better than Don Davis, way better. Listen, man, I'm going to tell you what I think about Francis. Francis is all about the money. Francis left because he knew if he fought Jon Jones and didn't win, it would hurt his chances of making the money he wanted to make. But realistically, his deal was bigger here. His deal was bigger here if he stayed in the UFC. I think I told this story a million times. They can deny it all they want. What do I care? It doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I was going to cut Francis when he lost 2 in a row. I was going to cut him. Somebody around here begged me not to do it. It wouldn't have mattered to me one way or the other. There's a much deeper story to this whole thing. He would have made more money if he would have stayed in the UFC. He didn't want to fight Jon Jones. That's a fact, my friend. We're moving on. I was going to cut Francis when he lost 2 in a row. Somebody around here begged me not to do it. Dustin Poirier responds to Ilia Topuria. Dustin Poirier is not convinced by something Ilia Topuria has stated ahead of Topuria's featherweight title fight at UFC 308 this Saturday. Topuria believes he is capable of knocking out Max Holloway with a single punch, but Dustin has expressed skepticism. Topuria's confidence is undeniable. He has even suggested that it will be an easy feat. However, given Holloway's elite caliber, Dustin doubts such a claim. To go out there and one-punch Max is going to be almost impossible, I think. It can happen for sure, but I don't think it will. This is a big test. If Topuria goes in there and beats Max, or lasts with Max in the volume game, outpoints him, outfights him technically on the feet, that's going to say so much about Ilia and where he's going to go. I can't pick against Max. I could see Topuria winning, but Max's experience and the championship fights he's been in, it's hard to bet against that.